Yes. Yes, I
All right, how you guys doing? Welcome to the first episode of Podcast of Verra. Today I am joined by my co-host here. We got Maezriel with us. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well.
Good. Oh, sorry, I
Happy
had
to
a
be
little volume issue there. But yeah, this episode, guys, we're gonna be talking about the alpha. A lot of people are talking about the alpha now. It's the big thing that's going on right now with Ashes of Creation. The NDA is still in effect for video. However, we are able to talk about everything that we see. So there's a lot of things that I noticed myself, and I know that you did too. Though I don't think that you had as much time to play it, right?
Yeah, I mostly just kind of ran around the map. I didn't test too much stuff. The little bit I was able to be in the game.
Okay. Yeah, so I got a chance to I was kind of looking at specific things and trying to see how certain systems work and everything like that. I didn't really get a chance to explore as much as I would have liked, but so we're going to talk about lots of different things here. But I think it's really important to note that the alpha is a testing alpha. It's not an early access. It's not meant to be a system that is ready for like prime time or anything like that. It's gonna be buggy. Things are not necessarily going to be well, definitely not. It's not just not necessarily. It's just not going to be the way that it's going to look like in the game when we played it. So certain things that I noticed, like you can say things like, okay, their enemies were just kind of thrown throughout the map in certain places. They didn't really pad around. The drops were all the same. Stuff like that is all to be expected. Not going to really talk too much about stuff like that because I really don't want to be nitpicky about it. Okay, but you can only judge based on what you see. So still got to talk about stuff like that. So I will say that the alpha was this alpha was to test rubber banding issues that they experienced on the other alpha that was last week. I didn't really get a chance to play that one. So this one was my first, and I know Maezriel, you did play a little bit of it, right?
I
The
did.
other one.
That was a lot of fun getting yeeted all over the place.
Okay. But this one only had 5 servers. I think the other one, I think maybe the other one you said started with 5 servers, but it ended up growing a little bit based on, when certain, they needed a little bit more servers for whatever reasons, right?
Yeah, to try to help fix what the problem was
Okay. So
with
this
rubber
one,
banding and server login problems.
okay. All right. So this one had 5 servers. It was Lineth, Resna, Shoal, and Kal. Those were the and Norland. Those were the 5 servers. So, but so the first thing we did was, create our characters, and Measure. I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, character creation, it's basic. I mean, for what it is, it works. It's functional. The character models are already looking great, and these are really like low quality compared to like what we've seen so far. They're a little lower quality in the game, but that's to be expected. It makes sense. As far as actual customization, it's about what you would get from a really cheap and poorly made mobile RPG. You get like 2 or 3 hairstyles, a few face styles, and that's pretty much it. We have 4 races that are out right now: the Kalar, Dunir, Empyrean, and Valoon. So 2 types of humans, a dwarf and an elf. Um, I personally kind of hope they might revisit elves because as it is right now, when you're running around and you're zoomed out and you're trying to see everything,
Yeah.
you're not going to tell the difference between either the humans and the elf.
Yeah.
Um, it's not like World of Warcraft where they're clearly purple or you're in the Horde in pasty white, and
Or you can kind of
you don't have
see.
long ears or anything
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
not
There's
as
certain
defined.
characteristics that an elf has that you would expect to see stuff like that. But again, like you said, alpha, you know, just getting the things in there so we can screw around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think personally, I wouldn't mind them seeing them take the elves a more elemental look, and like maybe and it depends, like
Okay.
because the lore between them is different. But I wouldn't mind seeing just like green, blue, pink elves. I don't think that would break my immersion too much. It's supposed to be a super high fantasy world,
Yeah.
and it would also help like pull them away from looking like humans or looking too much like the orcs, because the orcs really aren't going to be as, because that's something with one thing that you could say with World of Warcraft and even Final Fantasy to an extent. It's pretty easy to tell who is what. Um, but if races really don't matter at the end of the day as far as combat, then I guess I might be worried about over nothing. Like I don't think it's decided exactly what races are going to get stat wise to start off. So
They did talk
yeah,
about there being some stat differences and things like that. They did talk about there being some differences between races though, right? In the game, again, it's alpha and everything, but like, when the game comes out, right?
the idea right now might be stats, might be an ability. They're still weighing stuff like that. If there
Okay.
hasn't been a dev discussion on it on the forums, I'm expecting that there probably will be. But
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely an Alpha 2 thing.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, that's good. So you get into the world, and then first thing you do is you go through the divine gateway, and you got an npc kind of chilling out there outside divine gateway, and it's just somebody that with the dialogue, and you talk to the person, and then you're able to kind of, they give you a quest right away, and you go off and you follow kind of, it's really, now when I say linear, I'm talking about specifically the quest system. Now keep in mind, again, this quest system I believe was only for alpha. I don't think that when the game comes out, I don't think that there's going to be an npc there. I don't think that when you go into, because like literally you go into the world and you're in this little, I wouldn't call it a hub, but in kind of like, think of it like uh, an area outside of Divine Gateway where there's like NPCs and some troops and
A
things
moderately
like that.
sized encampment.
There you go. That's a good way to put it. Moderately sized encampment. And I don't think that that's the way it's going to be when they, to my knowledge, you go into the world day one, actual creation release, and you've got your wilderness. You've got a whole world out there, and you've got enemies, and you kill. Right? That's pretty much. There's not supposed to be any NPCs out there for you to give you any. The first NPCs come at the tier 1, which is the expedition stage, to my
I'm not
knowledge.
sure, because like one of the things that's in conversation right now is how they're going to do the new player onboarding, like the whole tutorial phase. Because like remember with
Okay.
Classic, it was pretty much here you go, and a lot of people like that. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason Blizzard went through and made an actual like this is how you,
Tutorial system.
because like you and I, we've been playing video games for like the better part of 30 years. A lot of new gamers
Yeah.
haven't. Like the divide between the casual and like even a moderately skilled gamer is huge. Let alone like between us and an
True story.
actual pro gamer like Shroud XQC level is monstrous. Like that divide is monstrous. Let alone
Excuse me.
the guy who's just kind of trying to play every few hours after work. So
Mm-hmm.
like I want them to have a good, healthy onboarding system. They don't need to coddle you, but there needs to be something. So there might already be NPCs there, and even so, after the first week or so, when people start building up nodes, those starting zones are likely going to be the most populous areas because that's where everybody's going to go to start building a node. Um,
Okay.
so whatever happens, like that launch week, probably won't be replicated again, as those will probably be the more denser areas. I would imagine. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
It's a prediction. We'll see if future me looks back at current me as an idiot or not.
Well, I mean, we're gonna see what ends up happening, anyways. Because, like, as we go further, and the great thing about having access to the alpha, whether you're able to play it or not, I mean, whether you got into it like already, or you're just now getting alpha access, is you get to take part in all the further tests. So you actually get to see the game grow. You get to see it develop. Right now, it's just like this island, with good sized island, with you know, enemies all over the place. Like I said, kind of just haphazardly thrown out there. And that's what it is. And some normal quests. Really cool cave I got to go into. I didn't really get a chance to run a dungeon, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So, like I said, yeah, you can choose to explore if you want to, but questing really kind of holds your hand. Okay. And like I said, it's more than likely just because of the alpha situation. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about really is the combat, because the combat is what I spent the most time doing, me personally. And I know you said you didn't really get a chance to combat too much. What did you play when you were in there?
Cleric.
Cleric?
I ran around as a little dwarf cleric, messed around like that.
What like stood out to you with cleric? I mean, imagine it was just melee, right? You were like, what, sword and shield? I'm sorry, a mace and shield, right? Cleric?
So just your base ability is a melee one, but your spells are ranged. You got the whip and you got the hammer throw. That they
Right,
showcased
okay.
Yeah, so all those abilities, like we had about 5 to 10-ish abilities per class.
Why would a cleric get a whip? You kind of got to ask yourself that. Why does a cleric get a whip?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a light whip, and like you can hear the whipping sound. Like it's tangible. You definitely feel like you're cracking a whip, which is a little weird for this magical light whip. I wasn't expecting it to sound like leather smacking against air. It's actually a little.
They did say that the graphic, not the graphics,
placeholder.
But all that is placeholder, right? The effects.
But it is a little odd to have like this magical whip and it sound like a physical whip. But yeah, it was fun. It was just, you know, we got we'll see how the combat goes. For anybody that watched like Shroud and them play APOC way back in the day, or maybe played it themselves, if you go into the game expecting that right now, that's nothing like that at all. They've already done the combat completely differently, as we've seen with the dev update videos. But we've right now it's fairly basic combat, but it's not bad. There's good bones there.
Okay, well that's good. I mean, I thought so too. Okay, me personally, I started out as a actually we got into the same world. We went to Lyneth first, and we were having connection issues, or it was really super laggy. I created a tank, you created a mage. Okay, we really weren't able to do anything. So we ended up trying to switch servers and everything. Didn't really help. So at that point, you really weren't able to continue on with that alpha. But I kept on going.
My rig thing. I have to.
Yeah, that was his rig thing. That was not an alpha thing. Sorry, I should have said that. That wasn't an alpha issue. That was his rig issue. Okay. And not anything wrong with his rig. It's just some downloading stuff, and behind the scenes has nothing to do with anything. So one thing I did was I decided to stay in the world and play as a tank. Okay. I will tell you what stood out to me. What stood out to me with the tank, obviously straight out of the bat, was your the way you swung your weapon. The way you swung your weapon felt so good. Okay, it wasn't just like a swing and a swing. It was like a whap, and then an uppercut swing. It was really like a combo. It was like a combo when you click the button over and over and over. Either you use Q or you're using a left click, depending on whether you're in tab target or whether you're in action mode combat. I had two abilities that I was able to unlock. I had Onslaught, which is like a charge, where you charge the enemy and you smack them for some damage. And the other one was Lacerate, I believe it's called. And all I know about it is that it does some damage. It has like about a 30-second cooldown. I don't know if it adds like a bleed effect, or I really didn't read the tooltip, too well, which I really should have done. But I didn't last too long on tank because I got into huge experience debt. First off, there was a red enemy that was running around the little encampment in the beginning, killing everybody. And so everybody was attacking him. I decided to attack him and, you know, try to bring glory to the Veyloon, and I was killed. So that gave me a little bit of experience debt. And then
you were wrecked, son, and you know it.
I was wrecked real fast, man. He like one-shot me. But he had like a cape on and he was leveled. so that gave me a little experience. That I started fighting these like little, I can't remember what the lizard creatures are. You know, they have a mount for it that Steven was running around on in one of the episodes. So I was running around on one of those. I was killing those guys, and I don't know what it was. They have some kind of an ability that when they hit you, it took off like half of my health in one of those hits. So since I'm melee, those guys ended up killing me like 3 or 4 times trying to do this quest, and I looked up and I had died a total about 4 to 5 times in total. Okay, 4 to 5 times in total, and I looked down and my experience stat was like 80% of a level after 4 to 5 deaths. To me, I was like, yeah, no way. You're getting like an like 1 or like what 2% at level, and I'm level 3, mind you. You're getting like 2% experience per kill. Okay, now again, this is not necessarily representative of what the game's gonna be like. It's just alpha. Okay, the amount of experience you get per kill, the amount of experience you get for quest rewards, the amount of money you get, all of this stuff means nothing. However, again, like I said,
it's all subject to change in a big way. This is definitely
absolutely
one of the more common complaints for most of us who've been on the A1.
Yeah.
Where it's the experience that right now is brutal. I like the idea.
It's unacceptable. It's really unacceptable. Yeah. But again,
if
alpha, you know,
if you're learning and your best bet before level 10 is just to re-roll and then start over again, I know some people really like it because they like that Dark Souls mindset. But whereas in Dark Souls it makes sense, you can just pause, you can go rest. In an MMO,
it's an MMO. Like you want to make progress.
Yeah, you can't just shake it off, like walk away. You want to be logged in so you get that reward for being in. So, yeah, you don't want the main components of the game to, like, encourage you to log out.
You're right. Actually, a really good way to put it is you don't want a good percentage of the leveling up process to be you trying to catch up to where you were before you started dying. You know what I mean? What it's going to do, what I imagine it would do if the experience stat didn't change, which I can't imagine it wouldn't. Okay, but again, part of talking about this is the whole theory crafting, element of it. So let's say that if it didn't change, I can't imagine anybody being willing to take chances in the world to like really try hard content. That often leveling up, people are going to really try to play it safe because they just don't want to die. I tell you one thing, I don't think people will be PvPing that much in the world, except for people that literally don't care because they don't want to take on experience stat. I mean, I saw a screenshot of somebody and they had like, they were like level 15 and they had like, what, 3,000 some odd experience stat? And that's
the other thing, the XP debt
huge.
It's not really balanced with the corruption just yet. So like being corrupted, it's way more beneficial. Like you get way less hit being corrupted.
Your experience stat is just gonna go through the roof if you're corrupted. So I mean, I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. You know, I mean, 3,500 or whatever it was % of experience stat, you must have been doing some stupid shit to get that. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Like we said, that's super duper gonna change.
That's gonna change. The combat's gonna be. The combat's in the process of being revamped. Am I right?
The combat is the biggest issue with it is the fact that we don't know if it's gonna get revamped. Like it's getting worked on. They're still trying to find how they want to work the hybrid combat system, where it's some of it having like animation locks and things like that.
Yeah, before you get into that, let me do a quick positives and negatives of the combat, just because we're about to get into what you're saying, and I really want to talk about. I really want you to talk about that. But let's look at it this way, okay? Combat, there's good things about it. There's negative things about it. Okay, I'm gonna go into that really quickly. Just gonna list out the positives and the list out the negatives that I experienced or recommendations, things that I believe would be cool. And there's only a few. It's not going to be this huge list or anything like that. But again, like I said, this is an alpha. The combat is currently being reworked. So, but this is in its current state, what I specifically noticed. Number one, positives. The animation is good. Okay, the fluidity of the movement is good. Okay, the hit detection is good. The sound effects are good, even in quests, like the quest acceptance and things like that. All the little, you know, when you collect an item, if you're picking something for a quest, the sound effects, they're spot on. It feels good. Like I would honestly say it feels great. I would say that the animations are really good. The fluidity, I would say, is really good, not just good. Okay, the way your character jumps, the way it looks, your jump animations are good. Okay, like I said, attacking feels good. Okay, now some negative things that I experienced are like Maezriel said, the combat feels like it has an identity crisis. Okay, you've got, you know, a tab target and you have a action combat, and both of them are fighting for dominance in the combat system, and rather than the combat system deciding between the two, decides to take a little bit of each one and creates a really bad, in my experience, combat system overall because of that. So it feels, like I said, it feels like it has an identity crisis. The experience debt is unacceptable in its current form. The ability tooltips do not gray out if you have no mana, or if you're not like in the proper stance. If you're not in action combat or tab target, certain abilities won't fire, like the Onslaught will not fire if you are in action combat, I believe, which is how I preferred to play. Period. Melee enemies can sometimes hit you even if they're not in range. I noticed that with my mage. I was fighting those lizard creatures that were killing my tanks. When I threw the fireball spell at the enemy, right when they would start coming towards me, they would do like a leg swipe, and from way far away, and it would actually hit me. So again, alpha. Another negative is attacking while actually, I'm sorry, it would be a recommendation I have. Attacking while in mid-air or jumping, I think would be an awesome addition personally, as well as, you know, the possibility of, you know, double jumping, especially since, or I think Maezriel, you said maybe that could be like an augment or something like that. But when we talked about it yesterday, but double jumping, I think, especially since there's a lot of, I wouldn't necessarily call them jumping puzzles, but there are situations in the game where you're going to need to jump in order to get to the next point. Okay, so those are my positives and negatives. But I'll let you go back to what you were talking about the combat and the, you know, the difference between the two combat systems that you were going to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, mostly you touched on it, where there's a kind of an identity crisis here. They don't yet know, or we don't yet know, if we're getting the hybrid combat system, or if they're just going to say, okay, we're not really making this work the way we envisioned it, so we're just going to yank the cord and go full tab target. That's your backup plan, is a full tab target. Now, the tab target is, it suffices. We can't change keybinds yet, so the attack for it is kind of frustrating because it's your Q button, so it's a button that's used a lot, for a finger that's used a lot, where, you know, you want your WASD free. That does change over for if you go into action combat mode, because you can toggle both, just like Steven showed in a previous clip. But it doesn't really fix the fact that in tab it's clunky. In action mode, things flow well enough. There's obviously going to need to be some balance tweaks with the abilities. There's not a lot of real flow with them just yet. It doesn't feel like a solid rotation. I did end up asking for this next live stream. My Q&A question was, what is the vision for combat? I'm curious what the visual vision
That's a
is for it,
really good question, man.
Yeah.
I gotta think of mine.
Aesthetically, I don't know what their idea for what they want, because aesthetically, it doesn't. Like, one thing I can say with World of Warcraft is, if you get to a point where you know the rotation, so you can start telling where in somebody's rotations. I mean, if you're fighting a fire mage and you see a big plume of fire around them, you can tell that they're probably going to throw pyroblast at you quickly.
Yeah.
and things like that. Like, we don't have those yet, and I don't know what they're planning on doing for bringing them, especially since we have not just the core spells from your um, first archetype, you have the augments from your secondary archetype, then you have profession augments. I don't know what exactly, like, I don't know if they know exactly how they want it all to flow together, or if they want it to be maybe a little clunky, but that gives us some freedom to jumble something of our own together, which is fine. I just don't know exactly what they're looking to do in that regard. Um,
Mhm.
which we'll just have to see. There's a lot of work that needs to be done as far as some more the more like how do I want like tactile feel of it. Honestly, the what we have right now is a really solid foundation. The spells sound good. Um, some might need some tweaks on the SFX to let us know that like, you're really hitting something, but that'll come in time. But for a first pass and an alpha one, it does feel good to press some of those buttons. It's just
Yeah.
not quite there yet.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, me personally, like I said, I really enjoyed the way that the combat felt. Okay, that's really important to note. Okay, um, but I kind of okay. Me personally, I prefer the action combat to the tab target system. However, excuse me, I don't believe that they are doing the action combat system justice in the way that they set up the action combat system. Okay, you have the radical, and the hitbox for the radical is like first person shooter accuracy. Okay, which for an MMO like this is for if you notice, like looking on the screen right now, you see how small this character model is. Okay, it's a very small character model in comparison to the world around it, and this is the way the majority of people are going to play their character. Can you zoom in and your character looks larger? Yes, but then you're going to be um, missing a whole bunch of the screen that you're not seeing. It's just not going to be as good of an experience. So you're going to want to play out a little bit more, which is going to just make your character really small. And it's going to make it really hard for you to be able to aim accurately at enemies or multiple enemies running around in circles. I don't see how you can do it. Okay. But let me go ahead and switch this over to a different screen here, and I'm going to show you guys this combat that Steven Sharif did a little while ago that I know you guys have seen this one. Okay, this is from when he fought the Macaws. Okay, and this is where he's
So we have
gathering them
a
up.
few macaws here.
Okay,
Little buddies, I feel horrible. But you
and he
see,
just
as
starts
I
doing his
attack,
swinging.
I'm hitting multiple numbers of these opponents.
See, this is how it is.
And that's
Now,
important
this
because all
I
weapons,
believe-
regardless of if you're in reticle mode,
Now, I believe that that was in action combat mode. I believe it was. I could be wrong. Maybe that was tab target mode. Because whether or not you're in tab target or whether you're in action combat, you're still going to be able to, your weapons are still going to cleave in some form for the most part. Okay. Now, this is an example of, in my opinion, when they talked about a hybrid combat, which I think would be a really good way to go, similar to this. I'm not saying copy a combat system. There are so many things to this. Is for instance, Elder Scrolls Online's just very basic targeting system. If you notice, let me show you here. Okay, this is this character. This is this enemy. If you notice where the radical is, you see this radical here. We go back a little bit. You notice the enemy is right when you put the radical near them. You're gonna notice how they're gonna light up red. Okay, see, watch. See, they light up red. So anything when the radical is within the hitbox of the ranged, from a ranged distance within the hitbox, and you launch an ability within that big hitbox, it's going to hit that enemy. Now, you can double tap dodge to dodge out of it, so that it doesn't hit you. You can dodge arrows, you can dodge spells, stuff like that for PvP, so that you add that element of skill into it. However, it's going to be a lot, it's still going to have that action feel to it. And this is just a minute-long video. It's not long, but you'll see what I mean. See, right when you can see when you get within the hitbox. Okay? And let me turn this up a little bit. Okay? Smash the enemy really quickly. And with this enemy, you can notice right when you get within the hitbox, it turns, and this is a tab target. So you can still tab target as well as do action combat. You don't need to press any buttons. Okay? Pressing tab target works. Or moving your mouse works. Okay? The thing with Ashes of Creation's combat, and I know you noticed this too, Maezriel, is the action combat utilizes the mouse to move around the camera. Okay? Now, the tab targeting utilizes the A and the D button to move your camera. So if you're in the middle of tab targeting enemies and you're using A and D to spin your camera around, right when you, or holding onto the right click of your mouse to drag the camera around, and you swap over to action combat and you flick your mouse one way, your camera is just going to spin. Or it could be the other way and your camera will reset. So it's kind of, you're consistently having to adjust the way you do your battle in this way, and it makes it really, really, really hard, in my opinion. So that's one thing about the combat that I noticed. What else did you notice about that?
I mean, I think I covered most of what I noticed. There's just a lot of rough edges, and there's a lot of not knowing what it wants to be. And unless I missed it at some point, I don't know if the devs have come out and just said, like, this is, like, I know Steven has said a lot about wanting to get combat right. This is what, like, we want to make sure it's tight and it feels good, but I'd like them to come out and just be like, hey, this is the actual plan for combat, what our goal is, and this is what we're trying to get to. And if it is kind of a junky Jenga puzzle, just let us know so that I know that's what we're going for. We're going more for player freedom than a smooth, tight rotation like what's found in other games. Because like ESO, like some builds have a pretty tight rotation, some classes have them, but for the most part, you can just say screw it and just randomly press 5 different buttons. For WoW, if you're not pressing that rotation even remotely perfectly, it's the difference between, well, it's the difference between life and death. Like it takes you forever to kill something versus if you're not actually using the right rotation. Yeah, I don't know where they're trying to find that line and where they want to be on the scale.
I think that would be how you doing, Fasal, by the way. I think that that is the main thing that in my opinion they really need to do, and I really hope that they get to your question, man. I really do. Because if it would be nice if we knew what their vision was. Now they've mentioned, a hybrid style of tab target where some abilities are going to use this, some abilities are going to use that, but they never, like with all the MMOs that Steven's played, for instance, and all the games that all the other people have worked with, surely you can be able to be a little bit more descriptive as to what your vision is for the combat. And I think if they can give us that, then I think that will be good, because in my opinion, trying to create a hybrid system where you have certain abilities that utilize this style of combat and certain abilities that utilize this style of combat, where both different styles of combat are controlling the camera in a different manner, is making it extremely hard. Nobody wants to sit here and click a button to have to swap combat styles, you know? That's kind of a little bit more akin to what I would think, like, let's say that you have like a warrior character in some games and you want to change like a stance from being defensive to being, you know, berserker, like in, you know, whatever, and you have to press a certain button to swap that, and certain abilities work with this and certain abilities work with that, you know, that's something totally different. Just having to swap stances just for basic combat, I think is a little bit, well, I think it's very, very uncomfortable. Is a great way to put it. So I will say my favorite class so far, I only got to play 2. I got to play tank a little bit. I got to play mage a lot more. I really enjoyed Mage. I really liked the wand. I know a lot of people said, oh, get yourself a polearm, yada, yada, yada. I don't like to do things like that because I already know that a polearm, while a mage I'm sure can use a polearm, I can imagine they're going to do some kind of a system where a mage using a wand will be more effective than if they use a polearm. I can imagine that they would do some sort of a affinity system for the weapons, don't you think, Maezriel?
So some classes are going to be more effective with some weapons than others.
Okay.
But that'll come down. But that is classes, not the. That's where your archetype and your secondary archetype are merged. So we'll.
Okay. So your archetypes merge and become classes. You're saying.
Yeah, you pick your first archetype, then at level 20 you pick your second archetype. That becomes your class.
Becomes a class.
Now, like tank might be better with sword and board, but I mean we might end up having mage tanks be equally as good with sword and board. We don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see how that looks. But yeah, now anybody can equip anything, and we don't know what the divide, like how big that divide will be. So if you're a mage and you're using a spear, you might not be as good as a fighter. But honestly, at the end of the fight, it might not matter. One of the best parts with that though is AOC wants to be heavily team based. So even if you're not like completely min-max to the teeth, the fact that there's 6 other people around you, or however many other people, makes it kind of irrelevant. Your personal min-maxing is less important the more people are around you, because there's more chaos to that fight. So we'll see.
So what is your favorite MMO combat that you've experienced and why?
You're showing us offline on my side, by the way.
Oh really? I shouldn't be. It's my stream is up. You probably just have to refresh. Right. Yeah, you probably just have to refresh. Yeah.
But yeah, no, my favorite combat was classic World of Warcraft. Where that was my first real MMO, so I'm always going to be a little nostalgic towards that. For, in my opinion, the arena in Burning Crusade ruined World of Warcraft's combat, because it made it from balanced around 5 to 10 people doing like these big fights, the big PvP fights, and put more emphasis on small scale, the 3v3, the 2v2, and the 5v5, and it wrecked it. It's why I really don't want a ranked arena ladder in Ashes of Creation. I don't even want that box remotely to be opened for people to start begging for changes to small scale combat. 'Cause people in the forums will always say like, well, they're balancing for big groups. They're balancing for big groups. Like, great, but we don't know if years of people going like, hey, this is how I play the game. I like to play the game this way. Why do you hate me for wanting to play the game this way? I play just like everyone else. Like Steven might be strong now, but he's only has to say no to like 12 people.
Yeah. Wait till you have to say no to like a million people. That's
and when he has a whole company saying, hey, we got to listen to our players, it's gonna change. Steven will not be this indomitable wall that can never change. So
that's true.
But I think that's enough about combat for now. We talked a lot about, and a lot of this is going to get
big part of the.
Even in the next few tests, combat's going to change a lot, and so we'll see.
You know, that's true. There's no
weeks and months.
There's no point in continuing talking about combat and everything when you know it's going to change. I will just say, like I said, I did enjoy the mage the most, and I'm really excited to see the changes. I'm really hoping that they will select your question and answer that. And I know that when it comes to my question, I will probably ask something similar to having something to do with combat. And if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I hope you guys will put in the comments below what question you're going to ask for the next Ashes of Creation live stream. And those of you guys on Twitch, let me know. I'm really curious. So quests. Did you get a chance to do any questing?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, cool. Tell me about your experience in questing.
For the most part, it's kind of interesting that you can fail a quest through dialogue options.
Okay, I didn't get to that.
Really,
I didn't get to that.
Yeah,
Which one?
That's a little different. The dialogue options are really cool. They're trying. It looks like they're trying to let you have a lot of flexibility. Now there's some great upsides to that. There's also some big downsides. Upsides, whenever you play through, anytime you play through, you can have a completely different experience. That's something that I always really wanted in something like World of Warcraft. Like a lot of MMOs, like Elder Scrolls Online, good luck being an evil bastard in ESO. The entire story is pretty much built around you being the superhero. WoW, same thing. You're the champion. There's nothing getting away from that. So it looks like they really, really want to make this game RP friendly, where you can be whoever you want to be, to an extent. But we'll see. I know that you had a lot you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, when it comes to quests, I mean, like I said, alpha, right? The quests that they put in there were just thrown in there to give us something to do. But the fact that they took time to actually dialogue those quests meaningfully is, I mean, that says a lot to me. You know, they were still trying to give us a fun experience and trying to give us an idea of what we can expect. I didn't know that you could fail quests through dialogue options. I wonder which quest, really quickly, which quest specifically was it? Do you remember?
Spoilers.
Oh,
No, I don't.
okay. No. We can spoil.
No, I'll let you talk about, because I know you really, really liked.
Yeah. I did.
Flowers. But I
there
don't
was
know how much we want to spoil it for people. Just I would say be broad. We don't know if anybody else wants to buy into the A1 and see on their own.
You know what? You're right. Okay, we'll do it. I'll just tell you this. There was this quest that I'm not going to tell you exactly where it was. I was going to go into this area, and I saw an NPC chilling outside of the area. There was no icon that told me to talk to this NPC. I don't believe. Okay, I ended up talking to this NPC, and they wanted me to retrieve something. Okay. And so you can just select yes, or you can prod and ask, or you could ask why. And so I asked why, and they explained it to me. And so I could have hit okay, or maybe I didn't like their response. And so I said, that doesn't make sense to me. Tell me more about this. And you could keep on going and going. And it wasn't like 3 lines of text and then it starts all over again. It was literally like it kept on going, where you're digging further and further and further and getting into why this person wants you to do this for them. And it just started getting really funny. Like the responses were very humorous, and this person was trying to hide things from you, clearly trying to hide things, though she was really bad at it, you know? But I really, really enjoyed that. But one thing I will say about the questing, again, alpha, they were probably just thrown in there. However, I really, really, really hope that they get away from the fetch quests. I'm really tired of the I'm like seriously done with the whole kill 30 of these, 20 of these, get me 5 of these and 10 of these, go take this letter to this person and introduce yourself. I am so tired of that type of questing system, and I do not want that. Like, for me personally, if I had a choice and they said, do you want this or do you not want this for Ashes of Creation, I would say, no, I do not want this for Ashes of Creation. Like, I do not want to experience that in Ashes of Creation. So I really hope.
I know. I think it depends on how they do it. If it's like, hey, go out and get this flower and then come back and bring it to me, I can get that. To an extent, and it depends if it's like, go out and get this flower and you find yourself at, it's a breadcrumb to a bigger.
Okay, yeah. See, there you go. There you go. There's ways to think outside of the box.
Or delivery quests are at their best to get you to a new location. Like, hey, go deliver this letter to this other node, and that way you have a reason to go out there and travel there. That works well for me. It gives me a reason to go out there. I do like that it looks like they want to add a lot of different avenues for experience. Like that was one of the frustrations with Classic. You only really had 2 ways of getting experience. You quested, and if you out-leveled that zone, you're done. Or
I'm glad that you said that.
If you out-level everything, which is very, very possible if you don't know where you're where to quest, you're just stuck grinding mobs. Like, I don't like how many people before we like solved Classic was just stuck in Ashara grinding dragons for 3 straight levels.
See, the thing about it is I don't mind grinding enemies. I actually kind of enjoy grinding enemies once the well, no, that's different. That's different. The combat wasn't as fun as you know, like action combat, like playing like a game like, you know, Black Desert Online or an action RPG. Even not an MMO. Take the MMO out of it and talk about action RPGs. The whole thing about the action RPG is killing enemies and grinding for the most part. Yeah, there's a story involved in yada yada yada, but you know, you're not dungeon running with groups and yada yada yada. And I keep on saying yada yada yada. You're not doing those kinds of things in action RPGs. It's a solo gameplay, and you're grinding mobs because the combat is fun, and that's what you do. So if the combat is fun, then you could do something like that. However, in this situation, right now, being an alpha, the combat is not fleshed out. But I will say something to the experience, the amount of experience you get for the kills. Again, and I keep on making the same exact disclaimer every time and saying it's alpha, just because of the fact that I don't want to say something like, you know, the experience values are, you know, not where I would like them to be, and then have somebody respond, well, it's freaking alpha, idiot, what do you expect? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to hear that. Clearly I understand it's alpha, so I just want to make sure that I reiterate that all the time to anybody that would respond in that manner. So getting back to that, I will say that the amount of experience values they give you for the kills are so low. And I understand that you told me that, you know, the response to that was like, well, he said he wants it to take you a while to get to the end of the game, but you can do that without making that length start at level 3. You can make that length start getting gradually harder and harder and harder, okay? When it seems like the only way for you to get decent experience is to have to do quests. What happens if you hate the questing system and you don't want to do quests? What happens if you really love the combat system and you just want to kill? What happens if you really like the crafting system and you want to craft? What happens if you know what I mean? You should be able to experience a sandbox MMORPG, which this game kind of sort of is trying to be, the way that you want to. It's your adventure, it's your experience. Ashes of Creation is going out of their way to try and create this whole, we don't want to put rules on people, especially with the whole PvP thing, why they want open world PvP. We want you to decide for yourselves what your server is going to look like, you know? And at the same time, I think that you should allow, or they should allow us to decide how we want to level our characters for the most part, right? So that's kind of how I feel about that. I hope that they will adjust the experience values. And again, obviously this is alpha, and they were probably just put there for a specific reason that way, because the world is small right now, and they don't want us to get to all these levels and not be able to have enemies to kill, you know? Kind of makes sense. I will say this game is definitely a group MMO though. It's sort of getting back into combat a little bit, but that's one thing that I definitely wanted to touch on is the game is a group MMO. Okay, it's obviously a group MMO. Okay, you run out of health, you run out of mana, and your health and mana don't tick back at the rate that they do in a lot of other current MMORPGs. It's not like you get out of combat for, 10 or 15 seconds and all your mana is filled up. Like at level 3, when I had no mana, I had to get out of combat for a good 20 to 30 seconds for my gauge to fill up all the way. Imagine if you're level 30, 40, 50. It might take considerably longer. I would like to see maybe a way to maybe rest. Like, maybe you can hit a button, your character will kind of kneel down, meditate or something like that, and you'll be able to get your health and mana back at a faster rate. Or I'm sure that's why bards will be very, very useful, because I can imagine that they'll be able to sing some sort of a song, right?
we've seen it's not just health regeneration. Clerics are going to be providing mana regen,
Okay. Okay.
resource regen as well. We saw that with the siege fight.
Okay. See, and that's a good thing. That's what I mean by this being really important.
Like we said, all of that's very
right?
subject to change. Like,
yeah.
that's the big thing is But as far as the group play, like you're 100% correct, and we even knew that before testing the combat because that's been the plan from day one. Like every caravans, you're not going to be able to solo them very well. Sieges, you can't solo. Just building a node, you can't really do it solo. Like all these, almost every single system in the game, crafting, like it's going to take time for you to go out and find something. If you're not a really good PvPer, you're going to need somebody to watch your back. And I've said it like a couple of times, like on the forums and whatnot. A bad player in a good guild is going to be way better off than a pro player playing solo for Ashes of Creation.
Community will be everything. Community will be essential and key to your happiness in Ashes of Creation, which will be a whole other podcast. But yeah, you're totally right about that. You are absolutely right about that. I do like the fact that I did notice the I don't necessarily want to call it frailty. I did notice that the resources were you did notice that your resources don't seem infinite like in some other games where you can just keep on going and going and going and you have to rest. You have to, and that's something and it's not as bad as it is in more older MMORPGs like a Final Fantasy 11, for instance, where you, like I said, you had to kneel down and it took like 10 seconds before you actually started to that kneeling down started even being beneficial to you. It still took forever to get your health back. You know what I mean? But you know, you can see that that's kind of they're trying to find that happy medium between giving it too fast and giving it too slow. And I really think that they're onto that they're headed in the right direction with that. With that respect, I think that they're, you know, what else would you say that stood out to you with Alpha, maybe that you haven't heard other people talk about?
I mean, of the guys that are like throwing out their experience, I think most everything's been covered pretty well in depth. It's mostly content creators that are talking the most, obviously, but no, we've had some great posts really dig into everything. It's hard to find anything else to really pull apart, especially at this stage. The biggest thing is I want to know like what direction they want to take the combat in, and that's the biggest thing. Other than that, server issues and stuff are going to be server issues and stuff. I hope they fix it. I hope they figure out their issues, because I know with some of the engine issues are a holdover from APOC, and one of the reasons that we were set back 6 months to a year is because they needed to rip out all the old server code and implement new ones. What they have done, they've made like each test, each day even, not just each test, but each, like the next day, there's huge improvements to the server. My computer quitting on me notwithstanding, the server was super good when you played it, whereas that first
it really
day
was.
When they got a huge rush of new A1 testers from this month's sale, their servers chugged up. I'm not quite certain what the difference is between all these players and that 500 bears that Steven posted out a few months ago and whatever happened to that server stability, but right now, I don't think 250 is on the table at the moment, but they're quickly getting there. Yeah,
and that's
so
kind of like
I'm excited for that. I think for what this test was, which was 100% focused on the server stability, it was fun. There's a fantastic foundation here. The Alpha Island is honestly a lot bigger than it looks like in the streams.
It really is.
This truly is like a 16th of the maps or whatever. I've heard a lot of different ratios. If it truly is just a small corner of the map, this map is going to be monstrous in size. And that doesn't even include and it depends, like...
you got to remember the underworld, too. The underworld,
not just
too,
the
on
underworld,
top of
but
all
like
that.
any vertical space. Like, take Blizzard before flying mounts come into any retail map. Their use of vertical space to separate things is first class, 100%. I hate that the game is so Like you kind of feel like crap running everywhere because all the quests are kind of built for the idea that you'll eventually have a flying mount, but they so many times they've taken such a small space,
That's
and once I
true.
finally get my own flying mount, I realize just how tiny their map is, and it doesn't feel like it when you're running around on your feet. Um, so if Intrepid can learn some stuff from that and make good use of verticality, this map will be monstrous. Not just in total size, but in like in playtime, getting from place to place.
Yeah, and I
It'll
don't I
be
don't want
incredible.
them. I hope that they don't take this whole, adopt the philosophy of, they make an expansion and okay, here's this whole new continent that just developed. You know what I mean? We've known about this
No,
place for
I
eons.
strongly believe that won't happen.
I
It's
really hope they work with their
yeah.
current world, because one thing that a lot of MMOs do that I don't want for this game, I do not want it for Ashes of Creation, is where they nullify previous content.
No,
They,
I don't think that's a worry. Not
yeah.
only so
Well, I
crafting
mean,
is
it's a worry, but I mean, like you hope that they wouldn't do
uh,
something like that.
no, for Ashes of Creation, I don't think that's a worry because we need
Okay.
for the crafting. It's about recycling, like, so weapons and armor degrade the more you use them.
Yeah.
So crafting is about recycling that. So the entire economy is based up around recycling that. Nodes are completely balanced around recycling and getting destroyed and then being built back up. There's absolute, like, to just add a new landmass and hey guys, this is the level 60 plus content, counteracts the very basic intrinsic components of this game. So if they were to do that, it would completely alienate every player. Because going back and revisiting these places to see if what was it like, your starting zone city could end up being completely different. Like you can go all the way out and have like and spend like a month just toying around on the other side of the map, and you come back just to visit the starting zone. You got a friend into the game or something, and it's completely different. That's a possibility. So to have places that are completely cut off from that, and like this is the new end game content, just completely counteracts that. If they bring in expansions, I would really believe most of their expansions will be in the form of, all right, there's an alien invasion, there's an invasion from a continent on the other side of the map or whatever, like some extra dimensional portal. So now these nodes are infected and we're gonna fight that for a long time or something like that. Or it'll be in, like, think of it kind of like Sims. They don't reinvent anything, they
Yeah.
just add to what's already existing, kind of like, okay, we're going to do a an expansion to expand water content to make it more fluid and make it feel better. We'll do an expansion to expand the nodes and add a lot more content to it in one big go. That sort of thing. I would expect it to be more Sims, less World of Warcraft.
Yeah, you got great artists, great people involved, great storytellers involved in making this world. The saddest thing is when they give you this beautiful experience only to take it away from you because they do something, different, the next expansion. So I I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with that. But again, that's seriously years away. How long do you think that it'll be before? Just out of curiosity, speculation. How long do you think it'll be before the game is released?
I wouldn't expect like entering betas for another 2 years. I would love to be
Okay.
proven
Wow.
wrong to see what happens once they get into the new office and everything hits that high speed. But I wouldn't expect to be in beta for another 2 years. Release,
Okay.
maybe three, if I'm being kind. Um,
Oh wow.
that'll differ a lot. And like that's
Okay.
not even a conservative estimate anymore. A lot of people are saying like 4 to 5 years.
Oh yeah.
But
Okay. Okay.
it
Okay.
all depends. Like they said that they hired a lot of new people, and we've seen the progress they've made in just the last 6 to 8 months during the lockdown. Um, I know Steven said that productivity actually went up working from home. However, they're trying to onboard a lot of new people and doing so remotely. And this is a
Yeah.
brand new game. You
Productivity.
want,
Productivity. Yeah. Productivity
yeah, you
probably went up, but
Collaboration.
the amount of collaboration, I'm sure, went down. The amount of people that you're able, like you said, onboarding, the amount of people that you're able to continue to bring in and add, I'm sure went down, which actually I can imagine would really reduce the amount of stuff they've been able to do.
Yeah.
Even though they've done a lot,
Programmers and game designers, they're easily one of the best jobs to just work from home with. I'm sure they're going to keep having options for it, but I'm also certain that we might see a nice big boost in productivity once all those people are in and we Intrepid's running at full steam. So I'm excited to see what happens there. I'm hoping that'll change up some predictions with the timelines, but yeah, I wouldn't get my hopes up to see the end of the launch date for another late 2 years, if not 3 years.
As far as the whole purpose of this alpha test, and I really wish I would have touched on that a little bit more, fixing the rubber banding issues, I really didn't deal with any. I remember running when I first started right around, there's somebody with a mount came whizzing by me, and there was literally like a little, elasticity there that literally went away in less than a half a second. And the only other experience was when I was running down a hill. I was running down a mountain after coming out of a cave. Running down a mountain going back to... What's that? Oh, okay. Running down a mountain, and then all of a sudden my character kind of appeared in the middle of the air and then dropped down, hit the ground. I think I took like 60 some odd hit points of fall damage, and that was pretty much the only other experience with that I dealt with. The game ran very, very, very smooth for me. I didn't have any issues with that, no complaints with that even at all, really. I was thoroughly impressed, to be honest with you. I've played MMOs, or not necessarily even MMOs, but a lot of games like on Steam where they release games in early access, and they're just absolute garbage. They run horridly, just a real huge mess. This, at an alpha, just being tested, I was quite impressed. You know what I mean? Now I know you're saying that you said you're super impressed, especially since this isn't a content test by any means. No, it's not a content test by any means, and I think that's really important for people to understand, is that this is a testing alpha. This is not an alpha for people to be able to get in there and have a blast with their friends and get into huge groups and yada yada. This is not the point of this. The point of this alpha is to test the game, and every time that they do a test, there will be a specific thing that they're trying to test specifically, and they'll tell you before the alpha starts. And this one was rubber banding issues. We want to test this. They said something like they noticed the servers started to decay. I think that's what they said, after they had been going for a while, so they wanted to test that as well and keep the test going past a certain time, just to see if that happens again, if they fix that issue or not. So like I said, I was pretty happy with that. One thing that I really I felt something I should have done that I did not do, and I'm actually very upset at myself. If you look at certain video, like, let me put this one back on over here specifically, and you look at this world, the way it looks is, I mean, looking at the grass, looking at the lighting, looking at his armor, everything just looks so amazing. That's not how the alpha looked for me. But one thing I didn't do is go into the settings and mess with the video settings at all. And I can't believe I didn't do that. It's normally the first thing I do is I go into it and I turn everything all the way up. The characters, when I was in the character creation, creating my character, I don't know if you guys ever played a game called Everquest Landmark. The thing with the characters in that game is they looked very, it was still, like I said, in early access, and the characters looked they almost kind of looked like they were made out of clay. Okay, they had this look to them, where they were still kind of being formed. You could see that. That's kind of how they appeared to me in the alpha. Okay, so my characters didn't really look the way they do here. Now, had I turned up the graphical settings, I imagine they might have looked a lot better, but I didn't think to do that. So the next Wednesday, when I play, I will specifically be looking at that. But you're saying they all shoot their videos in 4K, etc. Typically, so even with graphics maxed out, it didn't look the same, but it looked pretty
on top of that,
good.
and it's not confirmed by Intrepid or anything, but I think the overall consensus of the A1 players is that we're probably a few builds behind them, which kind of makes sense if they were playing on the bleeding edge.
I imagine.
To break it. So, like, because there's some spell effects, like Blink didn't look quite the same. Some of the characters don't look quite as polished. As for messing with video settings, I don't think you're missing out on a lot anyways. It's not a well-optimized game, which makes sense. Optimization is absolutely nothing, like absolutely not worth looking into right now.
Yeah, they're not going to try and do. Well, I just want to look. I just want to mess with it for the sake of messing with it. But something like that, they're not going to mess with
honestly,
until later.
When I started lowering graphics, my frame rates hugged because I have a high-end computer. It was optimized to be played at the high-end graphics.
Okay.
Yeah.
So overall, what is your experience with the? How do you feel about the alpha thus far? Your overall.
What I could play, my computer will run Ashes eventually, but for what I could play, I enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot. Because I've done like true testing alphas before. I've alpha tested and QC'd games in the past, and honestly, it was more than what I thought it would be. I was really expecting something a lot rougher than what we got, and I was pleasantly surprised. I know they've been doing testing for a little bit now, with like, Alpha 0, early stuff. APOC was around to help with a lot of like assets, but yeah, it was a lot more stable, and there was a lot more to do than I really thought there would be. I wasn't expecting nodes to already be leveling up. I wasn't expecting like a lot of quest chains, let alone like what we got. The problems that there are in the game, I think a lot of them is overstated. A lot of people are like, this game is not ready. I do think holding out on the NDA.
We're about to get into that real quick. Okay.
If anybody was recording anything from the last test, they would have seen that we had a lot of problems simply logging into the game. Now, seeing bugs, one of my favorite, there's a lot of physics bugs right now. One of my favorites to see, somebody was on one of the lizard mounts that they got from the store.
Okay.
Somebody ran up to him, and the lizard kind of like flicked its tail. It's one of just the part of the animation. And it hit the guy behind him, and he yeeted him clear out of the map. He's gone.
Okay.
Fun physics bugs, and it's akin to Skyrim's giant bugs. So watching Asmongold get just yoinked into the sky, that's gonna be a lot of fun to watch on stream. I think the game, if they fix the server stuff, honestly, with what's going on, rip off that band-aid. Let us see everything. Take off the NDA and let us really start getting some hype for the game. Some people are going to complain that you're never going to win over the overall MMO community, but I think a lot of the content creators aren't so stupid as to keep reminding their community that this is in fact an alpha, and it's going to consistently keep improving, especially if they keep improving at the speed they are. But yeah, that's pretty much to summarize my long summary. Server issues bad. Don't let people see that. But once that's fixed, yeah, the alpha's fine. I'm excited to see more of it, and I'm super excited to watch bigger streamers get into it as well.
So my next question was going to, which I think you just answered it, but let me just double check and make sure. If the alpha preview weekend is supposed to be July 9th, right, to the 11th? Okay. If that holds true,
that's up in the air, but yeah, that's always subject to change.
Okay, but that's what it's supposed to be. So if that holds true, do you think the alpha is ready to be seen? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. So my opinion on the alpha overall is that I had a great time with it. I wish that I would have had more time with it, which I will have next Wednesday. Wednesday is a much better day for me than Thursdays anyway, so I'll be playing the absolute entire time, from beginning to end. I was very impressed for myself with the stabilities of the server. I was very impressed with the lack of glitches, the lack of really, I hardly had any issues really, other than the fact that the game was just not fleshed out. The systems just weren't fleshed out because it's an alpha. You know, it's not meant to be fleshed out. Is the alpha ready to be seen by other people? I know there's this big thread going on Reddit, and everybody is saying no, delay it. No, put it out there. It is ready to be seen. Put it out there as soon as you get the rubber banding fixes, as soon as your servers are stable, as soon as they are not decaying. Put it out there. The one thing I really respect about Steven that I don't really see in the industry as much as I would like to see is someone who has faith in their product and wants to put something out there for you to see the current state that it's in, so you can watch the way it grows. There's a reason why companies don't do things like this, okay? Because they don't want to hear this from everybody who has no idea what they're talking about. And everybody who plays this game wants to act like they know about creating video games, and the overwhelming majority of them know nothing, okay? So I think that's very important to understand.
Well, not only that, like I said, like watching Asmongold not be able to log in for 3 straight hours, however long, not fun, not going to be a good time. But having somebody tweet out that video I just described to you of somebody getting just tail whipped clear across the map, that's hilarious. And I know Steven and Toast, the one who runs Intrepid social media accounts, will have a lot of fun with that because it's hilarious, and I want to see that on Twitter because it's good to laugh at. I want to see these bugs because I that's the fun of an alpha, is to see, like, Bethesda made a multi-billion-dollar company giving us buggy games. Like, people will buy a buggy game. I'm not worried about that. It's not, and they're not releasing it. Like, we get to see it. Like, imagine if CDPR released it as an actual alpha. Nobody would be this angry about Cyberpunk.
Yeah. That's true.
Well,
yeah,
that's the other thing. Like, it's not even delayed. If they delay the alpha, talking about Bud Rose's comment, a delayed game is good. A bad game is forever bad. If they delay the NDA, they're just gonna build.
That's not a delayed game. Delaying the NDA, delaying the alpha is not delaying the game. Those are not the same thing because the game's not out. Okay, this is the way I look at it. Okay, the alpha having the NDA removed is not for all the random people that are going to see this game when Asmongold streams it. That's not who it's for. Removing the NDA is for you. Removing the NDA is for me. Removing the NDA is for all the people that are watching this right now that haven't had the pleasure of experiencing the Ashes of Creation Alpha. Okay, that's who removing the NDA is for. Okay, if the NDA gets removed and there's a lot of people that see it and they're like, oh, this game is crap, I'm never going to play it, and they go and they start looking at something else. And a year from now, 2 years from now, when the game is a lot closer to being released and Lazy Peon makes his next OMG Ashes of Creation greatest thing since sliced bread video, they're going to see it. They're going to see all the vast improvements and be like, whoa, look at this game. Oh my God, look at all this stuff that they did. Wow, I can't wait to play it. All those naysayers, they're back to wanting to play the game again. All the people that wanted the NDA, that were ready for the NDA to be removed, will still be interested in the game if they haven't moved on in their lives. You know what I'm saying? So you say having people hate something they can't see is fine. But if they can see the stuff that isn't working correctly because things aren't functioning correctly, is more hurtful in your opinion. I see what you're saying if it was a release. But again, it's a testing alpha. Okay,
Yeah, that's the big
nothing
difference.
is going to
Like,
be working, and that's the main thing. Nothing is okay. It's not nothing is going to be working, but the systems should not be functioning properly. The way they are supposed to, the way that they're going to be at release. None of the systems, the way they are, is the way they are going to be at release. Nothing is at release. Nothing is. So that should be expected. If
the
it's
big
if it's
difference
one of
here
those,
is like take Cyberpunk, like currently the best example of this. Anytime
Yeah.
I see a bug in Cyberpunk, it's not a haha that's funny, which
it's like,
usually
it's
bugs
how do they
are.
release
It's
this
a,
game?
Great, I spent money on what I thought was a complete product because that's what it was sold to me as. That's
Mhm.
what I was told it was going to be.
Exactly.
Watching the bugs in the alpha, it's a different mindset. And like for most people who would comment negatively about it, like, oh, this game is garbage. I think there's enough, and I'm loath to like bring it out because it sounds like white knighting, but honestly, there's enough people that'll remind them this is an alpha. You're supposed to be seeing this.
Exactly. This is what
and either
alphas
way-
look like.
Yeah, and if they do keep holding off on the NDA, and they don't like start showing, like letting people just show what they're doing in game and show the bugs, then they're gonna keep being called a scam. So like they
Mhm.
lose either way. I think they
Scam
lose the way
citizen.
by going
Yep.
ahead and opening it up. Once the servers,
Yeah.
once they're confident that the servers are stable enough to be shown to the public, there's no point in waiting anymore.
Here
Nothing
is
else matters.
here is a good quote. Okay, and last point I will make to why it's ready to be seen. More is lost in indecision than wrong decision. Okay, it's better to release it than choose not to release it, and all the crap that comes from not, or I'm talking about the NDA here, not removing the NDA and all the fallback that you're going to get, because this would be like literally the third or fourth time that they push the NDA. Okay, at this point, you know, you either sink or swim. Okay, that's kind of where you're at right now, you know. So that's my opinion on the alpha. Is there anything else that you wanted to say on the alpha, at least for its current state?
I think we covered a
lot
of it.
Yeah, but hey guys, I wanted to thank you guys. This is our first episode of Podcast of Verra. There will be many more. I'm really sorry about the little internet hiccups that I've had, where it keeps on, you know, going out and coming back, where you guys had to refresh a couple times. I apologize for that. I'll be checking to see what I can do to fix that. But for those of you guys who do not know, Maezriel will be starting his own Twitch channel very, very soon. If you want to put your link in chat, please do
follow
so.
me, Maezriel.twitch.tv/Maezriel. I know links.
I know links. That's it. June 8th will be when he's going to start streaming. For those of you guys who are watching this on YouTube, I will go ahead and put his info in the panels below. And thank you guys again. I hope to see you guys in the next alpha on my next stream. And thank you very much, Valen. Appreciate it. And we will see you guys on the next one. Okay, take care and have yourself a fantastic weekend. Okay, bye-bye.